Good evening and welcome to What's Your Story? Tonight's episode is the history of the Buffalo Soldier. This is a two-part episode. In part one, Robert Harris, a Buffalo Soldier historian, will take us through the fabulous and intriguing history of this brave band of American fighting men. In part two, Donald Jones will share with us the Hartford chapter's involvement and service to our community. Welcome to the show, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you.
First of all, I just got to tell you,
Yeah.
I am so outstandingly happy with this outfit you got on.
Well, we try.
Okay.
It's a part of the uniform. The colors represent the Buffalo Soldiers on the back.
Okay.
And what you see on the front is sort of a history of every individual, you know, where you served in the military or with the Sheriff's Department or State Police, you know, like that. So you can look at a Buffalo Soldier's vest, or what we call cut, and tell a little bit about that individual.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Where'd you get that fabulous hat from?
I bought this at the convention in Texas.
Okay, talk to me about that hat, man.
Well, the hat is a part of the uniform as well. Buffalo Soldiers wore this type of hat. It looks like people call it a cowboy hat or a cavalry hat. But yeah, everyone, they comment on it. And a lot of people, every time I wear it, they tell me not to lay it down because if I do, I'll be missing it.
Yeah.
So I try to keep a pretty close eye on it.
It's really fabulous. I just got to tell you. So I'm excited about tonight's show because we're going to do part one and two. Mm-hmm. Part one is the history, so the audience will understand what the Buffalo Soldiers and the Buffalo Soldiers are all about. Many people watching tonight probably are familiar with Bob Marley's song Buffalo Soldier, but they didn't connect it to an actual regiment of men. Mm-hmm. Okay, so why don't we start with some of the history of the Buffalo Soldier? And I believe when I met you, you talked about the Reorganization Act of 1866. Yeah,
that was just after the Civil War. It was the Military Reorganization Act, which made allowances or made laws for African Americans to join the Army officially. They had 6 regiments. The legislation was passed so that they had 6 regiments. They had 2 cavalry units and 4 infantry units. The cavalry units were the 9th and the 10th Cav, and the infantry units were the 38th, 39th, 40th, and 41st Infantry. Okay, now this was formed in 1866. This law was passed. In 1869, 3 years later, the 38th and the 39th were combined to make up the 24th Infantry.
That's the Massachusetts one.
Yeah, and the Massachusetts was 54th. This
was the 54th, yes.
Yeah,
okay.
This was the 24th.
Yes.
And the 40th, and 41st, they were combined to make up the 25th. And those 2 infantry divisions, the 24th and the 25th Infantry, are still active in today's Army.
My goodness.
Yeah, and they were originally Buffalo Soldier units.
Okay, so with the Reorganization Act, we got blacks legally serving in the United States military.
In the United States.
But they were not legally serving prior to that point?
Well, the Civil War they were, but prior to that, going all the way back to the Revolution.
Yes,
okay?
yes.
Blacks have been serving this country since day one.
Right.
You know, Crispus Attucks being the first man to lose his life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
In the Boston Massacre.
Yes.
Salem Poor at Bunker Hill. They even had a Connecticut native by the name, I think, of Emmanuel Samuels, who served with the Minutemen at Lexington and Concord.
Okay.
So we've been fighting for this country since day one. And the Slave Act, or I'm sorry, the Military Organization Act, also gave slaves a chance to join the Army. You know, and that, you know, most of them were, as I say, most of them were slaves, but it gave them a chance to be a part of something as well, you know.
Now, that concern that was held prior to this Reorganization Act was the fact that you didn't want to arm African Americans.
They didn't want to arm African Americans, and also the Buffalo Soldiers, even at that time. Now, they were formed, as I said, in '66. The 9th was formed in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas.
Yes.
Their commander was Benjamin Grierson, and the 10th was formed in Greensville, Louisiana. From there, they were stationed on the western frontier because the country was moving west.
Okay.
With Manifest Destiny, as you know.
Yes.
They stayed on the western frontier for a period of 39 years.
Okay, that was their tour of duty.
That was their tour of duty. It's like, to compare that today, it's like if you were in the Army and you were assigned to Afghanistan, instead of serving 13 months, you would be there for 39 years.
Wow.
From 1866 until 1947.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Okay, Mr. Harris, what kinds of duties did the Buffalo Soldiers do? And just be specific about this. What did they actually do?
Actually, they did everything.
Okay.
They built roads, they built bridges, they escorted surveyors, they protected the gold mines in Montana. The settlers moving west, they escorted them. They even helped local law enforcement chase down outlaws and cattle rustlers. They carried the mail longer than the Pony Express. In the early 1900s, 1903 to 1906, they were the first park rangers guarding the giant redwood trees in Sequoia Park and Yellowstone. In 1869, I believe, the Army toyed with the idea of replacing the horse with the bicycle. So what they did was they got a group of Buffalo Soldiers from Missoula, Montana, and they traveled from Missoula, Montana, all the way to St. Louis, Missouri on a bicycle.
Is that right?
Yes, sir, to test the feasibility of replacing the horse. So it's anytime you see anything in the movies as far as the cavalry is concerned,
yes.
Just keep in mind that 1 out of every 5th soldier on the western frontier was an African American.
20%.
20%, yes, sir.
1 out of every 5.
1 out of every 5 was an African American.
Now, Mr. Harris, what do you know about the special relationship between the Buffalo Soldiers and the American natives?
Well, a lot of them, they started out, the scouts, let's say, Buffalo Soldier scouts were part Indians. These were slaves that had ran away from plantations in Georgia, and they joined and hooked up with the Seminole Indians. And pardon me, most of them were scouts for the Army. The reason being because they were such good trackers and such good hunters. So the Army used these men as scouts.
So the Buffalo Soldiers married Indian women?
Oh, yes, they did.
And produced children.
Produced children.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yes,
so the term buffalo, what does that come from? Where do we get that term?
That's
Buffalo Soldier.
Buffalo Soldier. Okay. When the Native American, when they first came in contact with us, with the Buffalo Soldiers, we were strange-looking creatures to him because he had been accustomed to fighting white soldiers.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So there's a story behind that in 1867, there was a Buffalo Soldier by the name of John Randall. Now, Randall was assigned to escort 2 white surveyors in Indian Territory, which is now the state of Oklahoma.
Okay.
Back then, it was called Indian Territory.
Trail of Tears area.
Right. When they were attacked by a band of Cheyenne warriors. Now, the 2 surveyors were killed in the initial attack, but Randall, even though he had received several wounds, managed to survive.
Right.
And he fought off, he was armed only with a pistol. He fought off the Indians and held them off until he received help from a nearby mining camp. So miners heard the commotion and they came to rescue Randall. Now, when they came to rescue Randall, naturally the Indians took flight. However, they left several Indians, a number of Indians, dead that was Randall accounted for killing them. So it was the Cheyenne that started spreading the rumor. Once again, keep in mind, they were accustomed to fighting white soldiers, that they were fighting a new, different type of soldier. This soldier had skin, his skin was brown.
Yes, yes.
Like the hide of the buffalo.
Like the hide of the buffalo, yes.
His hair was matted.
Like the mane of the buffalo.
Like the mane or the head of the buffalo.
Absolutely.
And he had dark, piercing eyes, just like the buffalo.
He was fierce like the buffalo.
Yeah, he was fierce. And even though he was wounded, he would fight like a wounded buffalo.
Okay.
So it was the Cheyenne at first they was calling them wild buffaloes, later to be called Tatanka Akishita.
All right.
The soldier who looks like a buffalo.
Okay. All right. So
and that's how they got.
That's a truism?
Yes, that's how they got the name.
That's how it came down from the Cheyenne.
From the Cheyenne. The Cheyenne were the first to start calling them buffalo soldiers.
Okay. Well, talk to me about Teddy Roosevelt and the Buffalo Soldiers, please.
Most people, when you think of San Juan Hill,
right, I do.
Okay,
yes.
You think of Teddy Roosevelt charging up San Juan Hill
yes.
all by himself.
Yes.
Now, Roosevelt took part in the battle. Yes, he did. But when you read the actual accounts of the battle, you'll see that there were 3 engagements that day.
Okay.
There was a Battle of El Carney, and there was a Battle of San Juan Heights. Now, San Juan Heights consisted of Kettle Hill and San Juan Hill.
Yes.
The Americans called this one hill Kettle Hill because the Cubans used to process sugar in these huge black kettles. So after the Battle of El Carney that took place earlier that morning,
yes.
Roosevelt was involved in that, and also Kettle Hill, Roosevelt was involved in that. But the Battle of San Juan Hill, going up the charge, the actual hill itself, the person most responsible for leading that charge was a white lieutenant by the name of Julius Ord.
Okay.
Now, Ord was in the mode of a John Wayne.
Okay.
Okay. Ord was leading a troop of Buffalo soldiers. They were taking heavy fire from the Spanish on top of the hill.
Yes.
Ord stood up, a saber in one hand, a pistol in the other hand, and he said, "We can't stay here. Let's go. Let's move." So by his actions, everybody gathered around Ord. You know, like, "Hey, let's go. We got to follow this guy. Rally around Ord."
Yes. Yes.
Going up the hill, unfortunately, Ord was shot and killed. However, his actions not only inspired the Buffalo Soldiers that he was leading,
yes,
but the other units, the white units as well. Roosevelt, hearing the commotion, okay, joined the fight.
Okay.
He joined the fight, and because he was a colonel at the time, which kind of it was kind of shaky as how he got that, because when they got to San Juan Hill, Roosevelt was not the leader of the Rough Riders. It was a colonel, a full-bird colonel by the name of Leonard Wood. Fort Leonard Wood is named in his honor.
The history you don't know.
Okay. So what Roosevelt did, because at that time, Roosevelt was the Undersecretary of the Navy.
Yes.
So what he did was somehow he finagled around to get Colonel Wood promoted to general.
Okay.
Now, because Roosevelt was second in command, when Colonel Wood became General Wood, then Roosevelt took over the battalion to lead the charge up San Juan Hill. You know, and he figured that would look good on his resume, because he was running for president.
Yeah. Now, wasn't there like a picture of the?
There was
a 3-part picture or something.
Going up the hill. There was a lot of heroic things. There was a Sergeant Berry.
Okay.
Sergeant Berry was a Buffalo soldier, and he was a standard bearer for the 10th Cav.
Okay.
Okay. Now you got to keep in mind that these were African Americans as well as white units. All these American units charging up San Juan Hill.
Yes.
The standard bearer of the 3rd Cavalry, which was a white outfit, was shot and killed.
Yes.
Okay. Berry picked up the flag of the 3rd Cavalry along with the flag of the 10th Cavalry, and he started waving the flag saying, "Come on, boys, rally around the flag, let's go." Okay? His actions inspired everybody as well. to take the hill.
Okay.
And Berry was the only man in military history, a Buffalo soldier, only man in military history to plant 2 standards from different units on an enemy objective. When they get to the top of the hill, when they take the blockhouse and everything, they took a picture of the American forces on top of Juan Hill. It was a panoramic shot. Okay. You had the Buffalo soldiers on the right. You had Teddy Roosevelt and the Rough Riders in the center. And you had the 12th Infantry and the 3rd Cavalry, were white units, on the left as you look at the picture. That picture was a panoramic shot of the American forces on the hill. Okay. But the only picture that appeared back in the American papers were these 2 units cropped out, and Roosevelt under the American flag atop of Juan Hill. The reason for this is because Roosevelt had with him a gentleman by the name of Ernie Davis. Davis was a war correspondent for the New York Herald, honorary Rough Rider, and a best friend of Teddy Roosevelt. So everything that came out of Cuba showed Roosevelt in a good light. Roosevelt did this, Roosevelt did that.
Very pro Roosevelt,
General Blackjack Pershing.
That's who I was going to ask you about now, the name Blackjack.
General Blackjack Pershing, who got the nickname for leading black troops. It was a derogatory term that they were using against him. But Pershing led a company of Buffalo soldiers. He was a lieutenant at the time. Pershing led a company of Buffalo soldiers as well at Juan Hill. Pershing received the Silver Star, which is the 2nd highest medal that a military man could get. So he's leading a group or a company of Buffalo soldiers, yet he was the only one to win a Silver Star. So how is it possible for your leader to win a Silver Star and absolutely no mention of the men that he led?
Absolutely. Wow.
You wonder about that?
I do. I also wonder about this. The IRA, Indian Removal Act, that was under President Jackson, I believe. The Buffalo Soldiers were there, and you talked about Manifest Destiny. You want to share with me your views on Manifest Destiny, the Buffalo Soldiers' involvement in moving natives west?
I consider that even though it was a negative part of our history, and I don't want to really shy away from that, it was more or less like I would compare that with African Americans in today's Army. Okay. When you're in the Army, you follow orders and you do what you're told to do. Now, you also have to remember, too, that these men were, not too long ago, were slaves. Had absolutely nothing. Now, to be given a chance to have 3 meals a day.
3 squares.
3 squares a day.
Absolutely.
A place to sleep, a uniform, plus $13 a month, which is nothing these days, but $13 a month, you're talking big money. Plus they had a chance to see and experience things that they would not experience on the plantation, because most of these guys, all they knew was the plantation life. And to go to these various, not countries, but towns and cities.
Villages and things.
And villages throughout the West, this was a new experience. And plus they had a degree of independence that they never really had as a slave. So to answer the question of Manifest Destiny, it was a part of American history, and we were that integral part of American history.
We took we did what men in uniform do.
You do what you're supposed to do.
You do what you're supposed to do. Now, you talked about what they got paid per month. Did they get paid commensurate with white soldiers, white units?
No, white units were paid $15 a month.
Can you elaborate as to why that is?
Because they were black units. The Army never really paid black. As a matter of fact, the Army was segregated, as we know, not only back then. But the Army was segregated up until 1948.
It would be under President Truman.
Under President Truman, right. you had black units, white units, Hispanic units, and all like this,
Japanese units.
Yeah,
Yes.
and the uniforms that the Buffalo Soldiers received were not always the best. The horses were not always the best. The food wasn't the same quality as it was in some white units. That was another reason why most of the Buffalo Soldiers became very, very proficient at fishing and hunting to supplement their meals. Okay. So it's always been like sort of
we want you, but we don't want you.
Separate but equal thing, which was separate but unequal.
Yeah.
That's always been up until 1948, when President Truman signed the executive order
changing the military, desegregating.
Yeah. And the individual that mostly was responsible for that was a Buffalo soldier.
All right, talk to me about this guy.
Benjamin O. Davis Sr.
Sure.
Benjamin O. Davis Sr. was born in 1877. Okay. Well, actually, he was born in 1880. He said he was born in 1877.
So he could get it.
So he could get in the army without his parents' permission.
Yeah, without parental permission, yes.
He rose through the ranks pretty fast.
Yes.
He met Charles Young, the third African American to graduate from West Point.
Okay.
He met Young at Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
I've served at Fort Sill.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, Sill thought he would make a good officer, so Sill catered him, took him under his wings, and just showed him that all the exams and everything that he would have on the officer's examination test.
Okay.
Davis went to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, took the exam, and in 1901, he became commissioned a second lieutenant.
Right.
Okay. Now, once again, he rose through the ranks, going over and over and over, promotion until he was promoted to general in 1940. Now, he was assigned to the the Inspector General's office.
Inspector General, IG.
Yeah, he was assigned to the IG under President Truman.
Okay.
Now, when he retired in 1948, after 50 years of service, okay, President Truman officiated at his retirement. It was a public ceremony. Okay. Now, the date that he retired was July the 20th, 1948.
Okay.
6 days later, on July the 26th, 1948, that's when President Truman signed Executive Order 9981, desegregating the military.
Wow.
He was the first African American to be promoted to the rank of general, and his son, Benjamin O. Davis Jr., was the second African American to be promoted to the rank of general, the first black four-star general, and also the leader of the Tuskegee Airmen.
Well. So what is the legacy of the Buffalo Soldier?
The legacy that they leave behind is that of courage, dedication, against all odds, succeeding. When you look at the Jim Crow laws, the harsh treatment that they received from their officers and from the civilian population where they were stationed, to survive all that, and 18 of them were awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. So that legacy of devotion to duty and dedication and sort of proud to be an American type feeling, I think that's the legacy that they leave. And this is what we, as Buffalo Soldiers Motorcycle Club, this is what we try to do. We try to keep that legacy alive, and we try to pass that on to the younger generation. Because a lot of our history is really not taught in school, or very little of it.
Very little, yes.
Very little. And so what we try to do is we try to pass that along.
Sure.
And if I may, one final thing, if I may, when we give presentations at churches
Yes.
or community centers or
Yes.
anything like that, I'd like to leave the students or the people with just a thing that's saying that I would ask them to pick 10 notable African Americans
Yeah.
and write, say, a paragraph on each one.
Yes.
You could pick the time period, say 1920,
Yeah.
up until today.
Okay.
And the reason I go back to 20 is because of the Harlem Renaissance.
Okay.
Now these people it could be men or women.
Okay.
It could be living or dead.
All right.
Just a short paragraph on 10 people to increase the knowledge.
Okay.
And the only stipulation that I put on them is that you cannot write about athletes or entertainers.
Okay.
Okay? Because Black history or
It's much
African
more than
American
that.
history is much more
Okay.
than rapping
Yeah, I got
and
you.
dunking a basketball.
I got you. That's all the time we have for tonight's show. My thanks to my guest, Robert Harris, for joining me. Part 2 of the show is coming up. Our dreams are as varied as the stars. Everybody has a story. What's yours? Until next time, thank you so very much for joining us. Good night.